welcome everyone to this session. Today we are going to continue on our project, which is the end-to-end data project using AWS and Databricks. I know the last session was quite a setup for Redshift, and today we'll be focusing on actually getting data into Redshift. Now, let's quickly go over from the architecture, see where we are, and then we go straight back to the demo. All right. So basically, we've set up our Redshift, right? And then we just want to make sure that Databricks can talk to Redshift, and also to make sure that our data can be successfully loaded into Redshift. Okay, keeping in mind that at some point we have to automate it, so that's why we need to be able to load the data from Databricks into Redshift. All right, having said that, let's go straight to our demo. So remember the last time we had this table. You know what we're gonna do, we're gonna drop the database. We're gonna drop the table first. Let's drop the table. All right, so where we are, yeah, that's good. So we're gonna drop this table, okay, so that we can just make sure we are starting on a fresh note. Okay, let's try and drop that table. Okay, beautiful. So this table is dropped. Now we will then have, let's refresh. All right, so we're going to edit. Oh, we can still see sometimes it allows us to. Okay, beautiful. So when we look at it, we see that there is no table. There is no table within this table, right? So we don't have any object here. So we need to get a table, create a table, right? So one way we can do it, we're going to do two methods. So one way is to create it within Redshift, and then we'll load the data from Databricks. Let's do that, okay? So we're gonna run this again and create the table, and we're gonna access the table to make sure there is no data in the table. Okay, so we refresh again. All right, beautiful. Okay, so now let's select our table. Let's run this. Awesome. You see no data, but we can see all our columns coming as expected, and we can also take a look at what the data types look like. All right, so we can see the table definition. All right, so now we are done here. Let's go back to our Databricks. Okay, now this is, if you remember the last time we were on Databricks, this is where we stopped, right? So we do have our data in the Hive master store here. Okay, so we do have our gold. Okay, and we're gonna query that right now. We can see, let's query that to make sure that we can access that. Okay, now, yeah, beautiful. Now we're gonna query that. Okay, now we have our data, right? And then also, if we take a look at our data frame here, let's quickly run that. Say display within bracket, exactly what we wanted. So basically we just want to display this data frame. Okay, so although we persisted the data frame, but we still, because we're going to use data frame here, so we want to make sure we know exactly what's in there. So we have 33 rows and we have the data. Okay, this is great. Okay, now what we are here to do is to be able to load the data into Redshift. Now before we do that, we need to make a configuration to our compute. Okay, so for some of you that you basically have launched, your cluster is up and running, so you'll have to stop it. Okay, before, let me see if I can, let me click on this first. So you'll have to stop it because you will need to install the, so basically you stop it first of all, then you click on your cluster. On that configuration, that's where we created our compute, our cluster. Then we come to library right here, right, and then you click on install new, and then you click on Maven, and then you will you will have to put in this coordinate. So basically we are asking it to install a package in Maven, right? So, and it's the JDBC connector, so we need to be able to specify that Redshift JDBC. So it's going to look for that and then it's going to install it. Okay, because this actually takes some time. I've done it before this class, but I encourage you to do it, otherwise you won't be able to call the API and access the Redshift. Okay, so once you install this, okay, then you then start back your cluster and then it should be good to go. Okay, now let's go back to where we were. I think this is where we were using before. Okay, beautiful. So let's go here to where we are. So beautiful. Now I'm assuming that you followed that direction. You've installed the package. Now we are good to go. Now this is this method I'm using right here, just to let you know, it's not secure. But however, I want to make it as simple as possible. Okay, remember when you created your Redshift, right? You were asked to put in the username and password for your admin, right? So you were able to do that. Now if you remember, you have the admin username. Remember we did DSP admin when we put in the password. Now that's the same username and password that you need for this particular configuration. Okay, now if you're working for an organization, so what happens is that the organization would they won't give you everyone administrator access, right? They will give you the right access that you need, and then you can be able to follow through. Also, they would not typically use this method of accessing it through user and password, which is very obvious here. They will use another method. Okay, and so please just get all the credentials needed, and then you should be able to follow through. But if you are just practicing, this should work for you. Okay, now for the JDBC, let's go through the code. For the JDBC here, you can see we have the connector. Where do we get the connector from? I'll show you quickly. You can see we have the JDBC URL here. You just copy it, and then you would basically paste it here. The user, I've just explained that to you. Put the user and then they put in the password. Okay, in this case we just want to test to make sure that we can access Redshift from Databricks. Okay, so we are referencing the PG catalog, PG tables. Okay, and that's what we want to use to test. And then we are saying try, and then we say spark.read format JDBC option URL. We reference the URL variable we've defined at the top, and then we also say DB table. We say table name, option user, option password, and then we put in the driver. You see we're referencing the driver, right, because of the package we have installed earlier on. And then we say display, just to tell us, okay, if this is successful, tell us Redshift connection is successful and show us a sample data of about 5 records. Otherwise, if an exception, then let's undo it, shows that Redshift connection failed, and print what the error message is. So we're going to run this. I haven't gone through the code. Let's run this. Let's see if we get the same any output. Okay, beautiful. You can see it's showing here Redshift connection successful, sample rows, and then we have all the 5 rows that we wanted, which is great. Now let's go ahead and then try to update that table that we created originally. This table, if we run it right now, no data there, right? So by the time we are done with this code, we should be able to get some data, that the data frame that we had, this data that we had here, we should be able to access it in Redshift. All right, let's quickly do that. So again, we reference the same JDBC, but one thing that is changing here, you see here I'm referencing this particular schema. Okay, but in this case, remember we created a new schema the last time, which is this database. Alright, and then we created this schema under the database. So we're just going to reference the database, which is New York City Taxi. Okay, so we will reference the database here, and then in the Redshift table you would reference the schema, and then the table name. Okay, and then you put in the user, password, and driver. This code will be made available in the link. Just if you have questions regarding it, just let me know. Otherwise, you can just follow accordingly. And then, so let's run this so that I can save these properties in these particular variables. Okay, let's run that. Okay, beautiful. We see that run successfully. Now the next thing we want to do is now to actually write it, right? So we can see, and keep in mind that Redshift is a data storage, right? So it's basically going to be stored in Redshift at this point. Okay, so what's going to happen is that you can see we are saying that we are referencing the data frame. We can use the table as well, but in this demo we are referencing the data frame. We say data frame dot write, right? Mode append, right? We didn't say overwrite, we want it to append, and I'll tell you why later. You can put overwrite as well, it should work. And then you put .jdbc, another option here, and then you specify URL as a URL we defined here, the table as a table we defined here, properties are the properties we defined here, right? Let's run that. At this point, once this is successful, we should have some data in our Redshift. Okay, let's run that quickly. Awesome. Now that we have run that, let's take a look and see if it works. Finger crossed. Okay, let's do this one. Let's run. Okay, beautiful. You can see now we do have some data. That means it's successful. All right. Now, one thing we want to do right now is that what if instead of us creating a schema and a table within Redshift, we could actually do that within Databricks. That's another good thing to have. This beginning to think about automation. How do we make this process easy and repeatable? Okay, now let's quickly go to this table and draw both of them. Yeah, let's just draw both of them for now, or better still, let's leave this for now, and then we'll create another schema, so that way we have a different schema, right? So we expect a new schema. Let's say for example we have another use case and we need to create another schema. We don't want to create it within the Redshift. So what do we do, right? So we will go with that for now. So in this case, this is what the code looks like. So essentially we're going to import Spark session, and then we're going to do create schema SQL, and we're going to say create schema if not exists gold New York City. We're just going to call this _2, so that way we would know that this is a new one we are creating. And then create table, we say _2 as well, the same data, we just want to use different method. Okay, so and let's take a look. So basically this one query in this variable, another query called as create schema SQL, and here we are executing the API SQL via the JVM bridge, and then we call the Spark session referencing the URL. Don't forget the URL we have is here and referencing this database, which is good. So we should see the schema and the table in that database, and here we are connecting, and here we are running the schema first and then the table. Okay, so let's run that. So we've put a suffix here _2, but the table name the same. So let's run that, and so we should see that table created. We're gonna refresh. All right, so if you refresh here, you can see, beautiful, we can see a new schema and then a new table, right? And then when we query this table, okay, we might get that same error we're getting. Okay, so that means we have to clean up, just use 3 connection. Okay, so we're just gonna run this again. See 2, right? So telling us no data. Okay, so what we're gonna do is that we're just then gonna run this and drop that in a new schema. Okay, let's run this again, So we're gonna pull this underscore 2 this time around, and then we're just gonna run this, and then we run this guy to load data into that table within that new schema. Okay, so we will run this. All right, so beautiful. Now we have run this. So basically, when we run that, beautiful, we should see that data. Again, we don't need this table and schema. We just wanted to see the different method of loading data from Databricks into Redshift. Okay, so because of that, we're gonna just do some cleanup here. Let's drop that table under the underscore 2, so we clean up. It's not messy, and then we just drop that. We'll drop that schema itself now that there is no object in it, and then we should just see that dropped. Okay, all right, so we just quickly clean up, and then we should see, okay, beautiful. Let's try to run this again, make sure we have our data, and then let's select table. Probably won't run, then we just run this again, and then we run that, then it should work. Then we see the data. Beautiful, beautiful. Now we are doing really well. So this will complete this section, just to show you the different method at which you can create table and schema and then still load the data, right? The next session we're gonna be looking at assessing the data in Power BI, and then we're going to take a look at ingesting more data. Remember, all the data we've been looking at so far has been July. Now we're going to ingest August, and we're just going to try and do that systematically, right? We will not automate here, but we just run through the code just to make sure that everything works fine, and then would have access our data in Power BI. So with that, thank you for watching. Don't forget, if you have not subscribed, to subscribe, share, like, and I will see you in the next session. All right, see you then.